to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is abundance teacher and money coach, Jody Lynn Craven.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
Jody Lynn, it's funny how these things work out. I mean, we were sitting here getting ready to do the show. We were waiting for our guest to show up, and we're about 10 minutes late, and we realized the guest isn't showing up. And in the midst of that time, we're having this conversation about alternative currencies and about attracting millions into your life. And the topic was supposed to be the millionaire next door. And we realized everything is all kind of dovetailing together to do something that we wanted to do anyway. And the universe is saying, don't wait for the guest.
Just do it now.
Just do it now. Get this thing done. I think we described it as a nudge.
A nudge.
A nudge, yeah.
Right before you get punched in the face.
Yes, that kind of nudge, right?
That kind of nudge.
So it's good to take the nudge rather than the punch. You do it earlier rather than later.
Exactly. 100%. Feels much better.
So, all right, well, let's start with the cryptocurrency, because you did a bunch of shows with me in 2022 under the title The Crypto Skeptic as a sort of a adjunct to what we do here on LOA Today. And they were great. They were fun episodes. We had some great guests. I know you learned a lot. I certainly learned some stuff too. And then we kind of stopped because we kind of finished the topic. There wasn't a whole lot more to do at that point. I don't think I told you, but at one point, not through the Crypto Skeptic, but from one of the regular guests who appeared on the show, at one point at the very end of the episode, she just made reference to this cryptocurrency thing that she was in, and did it so vaguely, I wasn't even sure it was a cryptocurrency. I mean, it was that vague of a reference. But after we were done, you know how we do after show? Very often we'll have these after show conversations, either amongst ourselves or with the guests or whatever. Well, we did that in that case, and I learned more about this thing called the Pi Network. And you know what kind of a skeptic I am where cryptocurrency is concerned. So I was very skeptical about it. But there were a couple of things that caught my attention. One of the things that caught my attention is the people who were doing this Pi Network were very, very aware of the importance of getting large numbers of people involved, particularly in what's known as the mining process, which, by the way, all by itself, that's a confusing thing for many people. I mean, it's a cryptocurrency. How do you mine a cryptocurrency? It doesn't make any sense. You know, what do you do? Go stake out a claim in California?
Yeah.
But it actually, the way it works, like with Bitcoin, everybody knows what Bitcoin is. Bitcoin mining is essentially solving mathematical problems. And the mathematical problems were very easy in the early years, 2008, 2009, that area. And then as time went on, they became more and more complex, to the point now where if you want to solve it, you have to have a room full of computers all parallel connected together just to solve it. It'll probably take you a couple months to do it.
Yeah.
Burning through all kinds of money in order to make it happen, because there's only a few Bitcoins left that haven't been mined. But that always seemed crazy to me, because that doesn't put the money into the hands of the masses. That puts it into the hands of people who are good at solving mathematical puzzles.
Or computers.
Or computers, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not against computers having money. That's another topic all by itself. But the point is, if you wanted to build a widespread currency, a cryptocurrency that's going to gain acceptance, you got to put the money into the hands of people.
Yeah, the power to the people.
Power to the people, yeah. Well, these people who started this Pi Network, they understood that part. In fact, they understood quite a few things that were pretty important to getting a cryptocurrency to work. Now, you and I both know I am very skeptical that, well, there are over 10,000 crypto coins out there, cryptocurrencies out there that have been created for a lot of different reasons. Some of them are not for currency purposes. Some of them, they're just trying to do various kinds of programming tasks. But there is a bunch of them out there that are trying to be currencies. And there's no way that even a fraction of them, a tiny fraction of them, are going to be cryptocurrencies that are going to be widely accepted. You know, like how many currencies are there in the world? There's the dollar, the euro, the yen, peso, the yuan, and then there's some smaller ones, and that's it. It's a handful. You know, it's probably less than 200, probably less than 100 actually. So there just aren't that many currencies that have gained mass acceptance. So the same thing is going to have to be true of cryptocurrency, and I would think it's actually going to be more so because we're now in the global age. So before people are going to feel comfortable about something, they're going to want to see not just that it's working locally, but that it's working around the world. That's my take on it.
Yeah. And it's also a hot topic right now with everything. I'm Canadian. if the listeners didn't know that by now. And you're in the United States, and everything that's going on between our two countries
That's
now, I think it's Kevin O'Leary. He's talking about like a new dollar between Canada and the United States, and getting rid of the Canadian dollar and merging some things. Border, but
all kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah, this is a relevant conversation.
Not to mention trade wars. There's a burgeoning trade war coming on. I mean, like a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So very relevant topic for today.
So, like I said, when I heard about this Pi network, I was willing to check it out, but I was really skeptical of it. So I've been checking it out since then, and I've been mining. And by the way, the mining thing is really easy with this thing. You download an app and you press a button every day. That's mining.
It's so easy that I have been able to do it.
Even you could do it.
Even I could do it. I'm like, I don't know how to mine anything. I'm really not good at math problems. So when Walt recommended that I download this app and start mining, I was like, okay, I will try. I was pleasantly surprised. It's literally one button. I don't know what any of the other things mean. I'm like still learning, but it's very interesting.
Well, there are some things that I think they could be doing better. It's one of the reasons I haven't recommended it before now, because like so many technologies that come out, they get all caught up in their own terminologies. And if you don't know what the terminology means, you don't know what the frig they're talking about.
Well, and like from my background of being in financial services for like the last 14 years, people don't understand regular banking terms anyway. They've already convoluted that industry enough, and people have a lot of shame and like bad feelings around money because they simply don't understand the language. Why bring that problem into this new space? Why not make it easy?
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that the Pi network has done very well. So I've been mining Pi for the last 2.5 years, something like that. I've got quite a pile of these coins that theoretically could be worth something someday, but practically, I don't know. But I did notice a few things along the way. One thing I noticed is that from the moment that I started to be involved, there was actually a market for these coins. Now, that's actually fairly common for cryptocurrency. It's unusual for this one because this particular cryptocurrency is not what they call mainnet, which means they haven't made it available for trading for other kinds of currencies. So you can't use dollars to buy it, or you can't buy dollars with it, or anything like that. You can't do the same thing with euros or yen or anything else.
Yeah,
which limits it, and they limited it deliberately that way. But it also raised the question: well, is this thing ever going to be worth anything? And yet, despite this fact, there is a market for Pi that has been going on pretty much since the beginning. And what's even more remarkable is that the price of it has been pretty stable and steady. Now, we have to kind of throw in a grain of salt here. We're not talking about this big market. We're talking about this little tiny, teeny, tiny market that is going on. The impressive thing is that it just keeps going. And people are buying. Now, there are a lot of crazy investors out there. You and I, you know that. That's your industry. You know that industry. There are a lot of people who will just throw money at almost anything. It's ridiculous. But I'm always impressed when they keep throwing money over and over and over again at the same thing. And it's been going on for years now. I mean, this Pi network's been around for, I think, 6 years.
Wow.
It's still not main yet, but after 6 years, it's still distributing its coins and all that kind of thing. And people have been investing in what they call Pi IOUs because you can't actually buy them. You can't actually buy and sell them. So the only thing that the investors can do, because the investors can be pretty clever too, is they can arrange with somebody who's mining Pi that when it goes mainnet, you promise to give me X number of Pi and I'll give you Y number of dollars. And that's how there's a market for this thing already. And I can't believe that it's been a very consistent market for all that time. I mean, back when I started 2.5 years ago, it was about $30 a Pi. Now it's about $50 a Pi. It's been very consistent throughout that whole period of time.
Wow.
I mean,
just wait till it goes public or open.
Well, that's the idea. And you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, you know as well as I do. I mean, it could crater. It could take off. It could just sit there and do nothing. I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities of what it could do. But the way I look at it is all I've been doing is pressing a button. I won't put any money into it. I won't put dollars into it at all.
Well, no, but how hard is it to press a button, especially when you have your notifications on, so it reminds you
Yeah,
every
it's
24 hours to press the
pretty
button.
easy. But there is one annoying thing. Often they'll show you an ad when you do your day's mining. But
Uh-oh.
I just turn the app off.
Yeah.
I don't pay attention.
It doesn't need me to mine. I just press the button.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you can learn to ignore that kind of thing. But it's been fascinating, and they've got rewards built in because they want people to bring other people in.
Mhm.
You could it's not really multi-level marketing, but it's kind of similar to what multi-level marketing does. They want you to bring your friends in, and they bring their friends in because they want to build the network up. They want as many people involved when they go mainnet as they can. Well, after all of this, a fascinating thing has happened. We're about anywhere from 1 to 3 months away from them going mainnet. After all this time, they're about ready to pull the trigger. And they've been saying all along what thresholds have to be met. There have to be, I think it's 10 million people who have passed what they call know your customer, meaning basically they've shown their ID and said, yeah, I am a real person. There have to be at least 20 million people who are regularly mining. There have to be, I don't remember what the numbers are, a certain number of business apps that have already been created for it so that people will be able to use it to buy and sell stuff.
Yeah.
There are a number of different metrics in place like that they said we have to meet. Well, we've met almost all of them. That's why we're so close to going public on this thing.
Ooh.
So, I mean, I still don't know that this is going to become an established cryptocurrency that people use for regular everyday transactions. But heck, there's not a whole lot of risk that's been involved.
No.
And it could turn into something. I mean, if I take the number of pi that I've mined so far and apply the current transaction amounts, I'm sitting on I think it's like $80,000.
Wow.
Pushing a button over 2.5 years.
Yeah. No big deal. That's
Crazy
amazing.
stuff. So I don't know what's going to come out of this thing, but I am now at a point where I won't recommend putting money into it, but I do recommend downloading the app and pressing the button once a day.
Yeah. What do you
Because
have
you've got nothing to lose on that.
Well, exactly. And I mean, you look at the trajectory of other cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and like from where it started to where it is today.
Oh, crazy.
Imagine having $80,000 in Bitcoin.
Yeah. Which, by the way, would be 1 Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But that'd be 1 Bitcoin now, but that would have been, I don't know, 80,000 Bitcoins back in the day. I don't remember what they started at, but
well, Bitcoin didn't have any value when it first came out.
Yeah.
Value was zero. And the few people who knew about it, they were going purely on belief that it could turn into something. In fact, I often thought I probably should do something. I kept putting it off. I should probably do some mining of Bitcoin. I did that for years. I never did mine any of the Bitcoin. I just didn't get to it.
Yeah. And I think it's hard again for people to understand what does that mean, mining, and when it came to Bitcoin, it was very technological. You had to know. Yeah, and intimidating. Yeah. Sure. I've never done it. I've never purchased Bitcoin or anything like that because I don't even know where you would or how you do. Mm-hmm. And I've heard horror stories about different places that offer Bitcoin and then they get shut down because it was
all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Whatever, right? Yeah.
And all that is very much a concern and will continue to be a concern for years to come.
Absolutely.
But I think it's also fair to say we're going to enter an age very soon where cryptocurrency is going to be part of our lives. We just don't know which ones.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you it's not going to be Bitcoin. That much I do know. Bitcoin just simply does not have the ability to process enough transactions on a daily basis. It just can't be done.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be Bitcoin, but there is going to be at least one, probably more than one cryptocurrency in our lives by, say, 2030.
Absolutely. And, it's really interesting. I don't know if you want me to tell this
Sure.
story. Right after Walt had said, hey, you should download this. And, what do you think about this? And I was like, yeah, whatever. I'll download it. I don't mind pressing a button every day. You never really know. So I just got the nudge to do it. And it was a day or two later that I opened up my TikTok and I got a TikTok on my For You page. And it was a Simpsons clip. And people always talk about like Simpsons are telling the future and like what's going to happen. And, okay, maybe not. I don't know. I think there's some really weird coincidences. I don't really believe in coincidences. So there's something funny going on there. But it was a full clip, and it was like Homer Simpson like reading the paper and whatever. And on the front of the paper, it said Pi, our local currency, or like something about like changing currency or the new dollar, or it was something like that. And I was like, wait a second, like this is the first time that I had ever heard of Pi. It was like 2 days ago or something. And then this is,
yeah.
I don't know if it's a real clip of Simpsons, but it was all about Pi.
Okay, we live in the age of AI. It could very easily have been somebody creating something. I mean,
it could have been, but I thought it was peculiar that I was getting this nudge of like, go ahead and do it. Like keep going, like a day or two after I downloaded the app, like, oh, okay. And that's kind of what spurred on our conversation too, when we were talking in the green room before we started, was talking about the nudges that the universe will give us and following those nudges and believing that it will all work out on your behalf.
You do need to be invited into the network. So anyone who's listening, if you want to be invited in, send me an email and I'll get you set up. But yeah, it's fun. So email walt@loatoday.net for those who don't know what the email address is. But yeah, send me a note and we'll get you in. Now, something else you and I talked about before we got going was we were talking about mindsets regarding money. And in fact, the guest we're having on today is all about the millionaire next door. So we got started because we were waiting for the guest. The guest hadn't shown up, and we said, well, we wanted to be talking about this Pi currency. Why don't we do that? In the midst of talking about the Pi currency, our guest showed up in the green room and is ready for us.
Oh,
so
wow.
This is like perfect transition time. All right. Yeah. So let's bring her on. Her name is Monica Kaufman.
Hi there.
Hi there, Monica.
Welcome. How are you? Thank you.
Doing fine. Thank you very much. Thanks for connecting in. I don't know how much of what we were talking about you heard about, but this is going to be one of the most interesting lead-ins to talking about people who are millionaires that you could possibly have, talking about doing it through cryptocurrencies of all things. But first, we got to learn a little bit more about you and how you ended up being interested in the millionaire next door. So can you give us like the 2-minute story on that?
Okay, so the 2-minute story was I was a brand new baby financial advisor at Merrill Lynch. And people had said, read The Millionaire Next Door, read The Millionaire Next Door. I'd worked in economic research for years. I don't know why, but I discounted it. And I got, within the space of about 2 weeks, 2 different referrals. One was a surgeon who was in his very late 40s and had had a stroke. And quite frankly, he had a wife and 4 beautiful children. And his base salary, this was 20 years ago, was well over $500,000 a year, plus bonuses, plus all sorts of other incentives.
So well off.
He had had a stroke. And if it wasn't for the long-term disability insurance that he had been forced to purchase when he joined the practice, he and his family would have had a major problem. Had some assets, but not a lot. And they were living off the insurance. The other referral was a couple, and the reason why they came to me was because they had a daughter who had some profound disabilities and was never going to be financially independent or personally independent. And they asked me, the accountant said, please see these people. Came in driving an older car, house was paid off, but not in a shishi part of Philadelphia where we were. And let me just be honest with him. He had owned some businesses. He sold them when his daughter was diagnosed, when she was born. His wife had a normal job. They separately never earned more than $55,000 a year individually, but they lived off one salary, invested the other. Anytime they earned any or they got any money that was out of the ordinary, it just went straight into the investments. And let me tell you, several $1 million rolled over into their accounts in their mid-50s when they were both retired involuntarily. So there's an old saying in finance that retirement happens whether you choose it or not. The question is, are you prepared? And these people were prepared. And at that point, I sat there and I looked at this and I said, here's the millionaire next door. These were people that were investing from day one. They kept their debt under control, limited it to their house. They could do whatever the heck they wanted. They saw their money as tools to build up what they wanted. They weren't interested in impressing anybody else. They didn't have the latest purses, the latest anything, but they sure could afford it.
Mhm.
Okay. And so it really just became very clear to me that this was it. The other thing was, I also saw another couple real short story. Saw another couple come in. They were in their early 50s. They did a total course turnaround. They saw that they'd invested everything. They were in debt up to their eyeballs with their house and with college debt for their kids. They made a course turnaround, changed the way they lived. They lived according to the Millionaire Next Door principles, not officially, but that's what they did. The wife went back to work. Everything she earned got invested. And 12, 13 years later, they were able to retire the way they wanted to.
Beautiful.
Okay, so, essentially money is a set of tools in your hands. What you do with it is a reflection of what's going on inside of you. And my question is, what are you using your tools to build? Are you trapped on the set of misery and you're about to hobble your own ankles, or are you actually building out the future you want?
Good
Jody
question.
Lynn is listening to this very carefully and with wide open ears, because she's a money coach and a financial advisor. And so you're like right in her wheelhouse right now.
Definitely.
And Jody Lynn, when you're listening to what Monica's saying, what's grabbing your attention first?
I mean, that there is the possibility of doing it. A lot of times people feel defeated with where they're at and what has happened in the past, and they just get stuck in that mind frame and they can't get past it, or they don't know how to get past it. And I love, Monica, that you're talking about stories of getting past it and turning things around quickly, like the people that in their 50s, like some people, especially financial advisors, some of them would have been like, you're hooped, good luck to you, bye now. And it's just refreshing to hear that, like, those stories and how that impacted you, because I've been impacted the same way. And I think if you can give someone hope at any age, it can completely change their life.
Well, and that's the whole piece of this. One of the things that bothers me about the industry, and I don't know if you feel it the same way, Jody, but I've seen people literally get in their own way. And 99% of the time, what people don't understand is, you show me your money and I can tell you what's going on inside of you. Okay. And the piece is, look, 80% of the population is considered financially illiterate. 70% is financially vulnerable. And we're 5 generations into this problem. I remember going into my kids' middle school and teaching a class on what I called economic and financial literacy. And that reality literally was laid right at my doorstep. I just watched it unfold in front of me. And, here's the thing. I have enormous amounts of empathy for people who find themselves in that position. But here's where it stops. Today, you have agency today. You can't have agency for yesterday, and tomorrow doesn't exist. What are you going to do today to move forward? And here's the thing. I still work as a financial advisor. I'm director of financial planning for an RIA. But my love and what I'm really focused on and what I really want to advance is getting people to get out of their own way and master the system. Now, some people are built where they can read and then they can do. Most of us are not. Most of us need someone to hold their hands and help them adjust to the shift. And bluntly, you cannot go anywhere that your mind has not gone before you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And here's the other piece, and I say this to people all the time. Don't tell me you've mastered one area of your life, because how you do anything is how you'll do everything. So if you've mastered one area of your life, use those lessons and apply them forward. As I work on my physical fitness, I've been listening to different trainers. And one of the things they'll talk about is that you start off in function, you go function to health, to fitness, to performance. And that paradigm from physical fitness, there's so much wisdom in that you can use in any area, and it works in financial fitness.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you? Mm-hmm. You can't sequester it off. You're a unified human being. It's one unit. So as long as you turn around and start understanding money is just a set of tools in your hands, there's no reason to be afraid of them. You have to learn to use them.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm hearing from Monica the same kind of things you've been telling me for months now.
Yeah, it's true. It's absolutely true. I agree with what Monica has said. I love how you put that, show me your money, I'll show you what's going on inside you. Oh, true.
Well, And here's the thing that bothers me, and thank you for being affirmative with that. I'm not trying to offend you. We're friend people. I want people to understand, I think they can do it, and I want it for them, but I can't want it for them more than they want it for them. And I'm not going to do them any good if I don't tell them the truth. Literally, here's where it's at. This is what you need to think about. And what are you going to do? I have empathy for you up until the moment you turn around and you refuse to take agency in your world.
You got to do something.
Well, you don't. Okay. That's also a choice. Remember, that's a choice. That is a choice. And you know what? Sorry, I can't save you. You can save yourself. I can throw you the raft. I can throw you the life preserver. I can cheer you on. I can show you how to do it, but you got to do the work. What's been your experience? How do you motivate people to move?
Well, not with my dog barking. She heard your voice and got scared. She's like, I gotta get moving.
Where are my dogs? There's someone around here. I'm doing this from home too, so it's okay. It's okay. So anyways, so yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why we did the Harmony Wealth Academy the way we did it was we use cognitive behavioral techniques to help support people as they shift how they think and feel and therefore act. So it's not a quick fix. Okay. But if you've acquired these habits and you've acquired these processes with money and it's connected to all sorts of neurotransmitters, it's going to take time to shift. The other piece is, and this is something that I do, and I insist on this, is we also focus while we're working on your mindset. And I hate that term. I hate jargon. Jargon needs to be banished, but it drives me batty.
So what do you like instead of mindset? I'm curious.
Well, here's the thing. Your mindset is your window through which, the prism through which you view everything. Okay. So it's those thoughts and those feelings that color how you process that information and therefore act. So you've seen this, Jody, and I know you have. Okay. When you see people, they make a decision and then they engage in what I call mental yoga to rationalize and justify it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that happens, but you don't do that without having a set of assumptions and a set of feelings and a set of patterns and habits that get you to that place. And that's what mindset is. So when I look at this, I'm like, okay, I want there to be a no jargon world. In our program, there is no jargon. You're going to get the terms, you're going to get the definition, but there is no jargon. Okay. If I can't explain it to you in real world terms, I don't own it. I own it. When I used to train new baby advisors and they would come at me with jargon, I'd be like, stop. If you can't use regular language that somebody can understand, no one should hire you. No one should work with you. No. Okay. If you think it makes you sound polished and accomplished, no, it makes you sound like you memorized.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking to a person, you're not talking to a bot.
We were literally just talking about that in terms of like cryptocurrency and about how the financial industry, a lot of people talk to you up here in this other language and people don't understand it. They don't understand the words that you're using or their eyes gloss over and they just nod and pretend because they're embarrassed that they don't understand, yet they were never taught. So I love that you said that.
Well, here's the fun thing. I remember one baby advisor and he came in and he was all about talking to other advisors and he wanted to understand some of the more advanced private equities, private offerings. And I'd look at him and I remember talking to him because he failed the Series 7. Okay, that's bizarre to me, but he failed it. And then I said to him, all right. And I tried to teach him. And at one point I'm coaching him. This is on my time, right? And I said to him, do you understand what a stock is? Do you know what a common stock is versus a preferred?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, no, I didn't see that question. So I didn't memorize the answer. Wait, what? Okay. So the Series 7 had a question bank originally of 10,000 questions. You're trying to memorize 10,000 questions. It's now up to 14,000 questions.
Oh, jeez.
It is faster and
So
easier
clear.
for you to memorize and understand what these tools are and how they work than to try to memorize the question. Couldn't do it. And I said, so you want to talk about all sorts of very advanced things that 99% of the investing public cannot get involved in, and you can't tell me what the differences are between these two types of stocks.
It reminds me of an episode of an old TV series, The West Wing, in which the woman who was the press secretary was boning up on the census, and she was learning all these statistical things about the census, all the data, all the history of it, and so forth. And so she finally gets to the point where she feels like she knows it all, and one of her colleagues has been schooling her on it and so forth. And so they end up before the president, and the president says, "So how many people are there in the country?" She says,
I don't know.
but here's the other thing, like, and I was just talking about this with somebody else. Okay, so go back to the financial world. I'm at a dinner and I was invited within the community to meet some new people. And there's this one person in the community who likes to guide other people in investing, no training whatsoever, but a good man and well-intentioned, right? So he comes at me and he says, "Tell me about mutual funds you like." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, what mutual fund should I buy?" I said, "I don't know you. I don't know what you have, what you don't have. What type of account is this?" He's like, "Why does that matter?" Because there are tax consequences inside of mutual funds. So if it's a retirement account, that's not the same thing as if it's a cash investment account. And he looked at me like I had sprouted horns. He's like, "Well, what about ETFs?" I said, "ETFs?" He said, "Well, what do you recommend?" I said, "Let me start off with this. I don't know you. I don't know your goals. I don't know your risk tolerance. I don't know your investment history. I can't make a recommendation to you. I'm not going to." He said, "Well, we're just having a conversation. Would you do that with the doctor? Hey, tell me what medication I should take." Okay, who are you? What's wrong with you? Why are you taking medication? Okay. And he looked at me and he was offended. And I just was like, look, as a CFP, I'm a fiduciary. I'm held accountable to the recommendations I make.
Mm-hmm.
How can I make a recommendation for you? I have no idea who you are. I don't even remember your first name. Okay.
Let's start with your name.
It is the first line on the form. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. People don't know better. And our industry has not done anybody a great service by not doing better. So the only way the industry is going to change is if we throw the power back to the consumer where it belongs and help them to know better so they can look people in the eyes and demand better. Because I'll tell you what, if we demand as clients, if clients demand better, advisors will rise to the occasion. Mm-hmm. It's a privilege to work with people. Mm-hmm. So, our program is designed to help individuals take a break, step back, build out some of those defenses, envision what they want, and develop a real mental image of what that wealth looks like and what it will take to get there, and support them as they start making changes. And then they can start getting strategic, and then they can start implementing. Mm-hmm. It's if you really want to make a life transformation, the time is going to pass. The question is, are you going to use it to build what you want, or are you going to stay stuck where you are? I don't know if you've heard this. There's a phrase from Lewis Carroll. It's like, well, if you don't care where you're going, any road will get you there. So when I say to people, tell me what you want, they're like, why? Because I need to know where we're going so that we can figure out what roads you want to take.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's amazing how many people, not just financially, how many people really don't have any clear idea of what they want in life.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, so tell me that I'm wrong. You have to believe where you're supposed to be responsible, like Susie Orman used to say about 30 years ago. She was dead right. Responsible means responsible. You choose how you respond. Okay, that's what you have control over. And then you turn around, and I feel like you guys are nodding your head like, am I boring you? But
no.
Okay, so Susie Orman was dead on. And so you choose what you want, and then you have to believe that you're supposed to be that person who acts that way. And freedom is the flip side of responsibility. Okay, so if you are free to choose your responses and what you do. And that filters to you physically, emotionally, socially, intellectually, and financially.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you believe that you were created to be that and to do that, you're not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a spiritual component in this. You have to believe that this is your job. This is part of who you're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a spiritual component in all of it, really, in every aspect of life. And if you're not applying a spiritual component, you're basically shortchanging yourself.
Agreed. So what is it going to take for people to do it?
That's been one of the reasons why we've had a show for the past 12 years to talk about it. But I can tell you, out of the many thousands of answers that I have found for myself and that have gotten from other people, I can identify a few things.
Okay, go for it.
One of the most important things is crash and burn.
Mm-hmm.
Pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's always a different landing point for every person. It's always some level that's too much pain. I can't do it anymore. I have to turn this thing around.
Mm-hmm.
But that seems to be an important piece to the puzzle. If you don't have that, for the vast majority of people, they're not going to make the decision to change.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of the book, The Mountain Is You?
I have heard that. I don't know the book, but I've heard that title.
Okay, so it has a cognitive approach to essentially that problem. For almost everybody, the problem is themselves. Okay.
Yeah.
They are the hurdle they have to get beyond. And the question is, why aren't they doing it? And what is it going to take for them to get there? So when you tell people the reason why you haven't achieved your wealth goals is because of you, they look at you and they're like, the market and this and that. It's like, no. It's you. Now, here's the good news with that. You can change you. You can't change the market. You can't change the economy. You can't change others. You certainly can change you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's quite an adventure to do it, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and pain is the only thing. We're humans. We're animals. That's how we learn. And it's awful. Trust me. I feel it. I know it. I get it.
Oh, yeah. And in fact, I've had numerous people tell me on the show that their particularly massively painful point in their lives was something they would never want to reproduce. But boy, oh boy, are they glad they had it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it produced more good for the rest of their lives than anything else that they ever encountered.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. And I sympathize for it. And I want to hold people's hands while they go through it. But they got to reach out to me first and say, I'm climbing out of this hole because I'm not going in there with them.
Mm.
Okay. But yeah, no, I'm with you. What else have you learned?
I'm supposed to summarize 12 years in 10 minutes. I'm not sure if I can do that.
Can you give me two more? Can you give me two more?
I can.
I think it really comes down to what you were talking about. It's about taking responsibility for your own decisions in life and realizing that you have choices that you were in many ways deciding weren't your choice in the first place. We have a tendency to give away, I think the term you used was agency. We tend to give away our agency. We tend to give away our belief that we have the ability to choose our way out of stuff that we get ourselves into. And that there are a number of things that are within our control that we never thought were within our control.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And here's the other piece about this, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart.
Something here.
I'm so sorry.
There we go.
What bothers me immensely is who you surround yourself with. Are you surrounding yourself with people who call you to your best self? Okay. Excellence to me is a journey. It's a process. It is not a destination. Mm-hmm. I choose to surround myself with people who want me to succeed. Are you surrounding yourself with people who are pulling you back into that crab pot, the way Jordan Peterson describes it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because if you're around people who are going to pull you back in who don't believe in this, then it's going to be very difficult for you to sustain change because the message is stay the same.
Mm-hmm.
And along with that is the fact that when you start making changes, if some of these people around you are not amenable to those changes, as long as you continue to make the changes, they're going to tend to go away.
Mm-hmm. Or you're going to push them out. And I will. Yeah. And you realize very quickly you have to push people out of your lives. your life. Okay. It's, the alcoholic cannot go back to their drinking friends. So right. It just doesn't work. The drug addict can't hang out with the same people or in the same places that they did when they were actively using drugs.
Right.
Okay. If you're going to be successful at whatever it is you do, you have to choose people who are, like Martin Luther King said, choosing to be the best damn whatever it is they are. And he used the phrase of the street sweeper. I'd rather be with the person who's committed to being the best damn street sweeper than be with the person who's like, I'm going to be a mediocre whatever.
Yeah.
Do what you can with joy and with a determination to do excellence, because I can guarantee you won't stay a street sweeper if that's your attitude. Okay, Jody, I totally crowded you out. Tell me what you have learned.
That's okay. Well, I mean, Walt has said a number of things that I took the words right out of my mouth. I think a big thing that I've focused on in my practice and myself is awareness. Just understanding like what it is, like what do I think or do I feel anytime I feel any sort of discomfort or anger or anything that isn't aligned with the joy and all the things I want to feel. I look at it as an opportunity to learn something about myself. So what is it that I feel? Why do I feel it that way? What meaning have I given it? And do I really want to keep that, or do I want to shift that to something that could catapult me to where I really want to go?
So one of the things that I do with my people is I talk about development of adversity quotient. So when we're doing our year-long program, so there's 2 parts to the program. Envision is the first one and the mastery is the second one. We shift from the basics all the way into what's called adversity quotient, and then we go all the way out to what is grit, gratitude, resilience, instincts, and tenacity. And adversity quotient is you doing the exercises, both cognitive and structurally within your environment, to be able to say, okay, what are the things that if I were to tackle them would create the biggest impact? So sometimes that's the biggest positive impact, but sometimes that's resolving the biggest problem that's a drain. And those things are difficult and they're hard. So how do you turn into the adversity to maximize your impact? And that requires some support systems along the way and reinforcement to get there. And sometimes you have to get super uncomfortable, because everything about change, while it's positive on the other side, requires discomfort. You're going to get to the pain point that motivates you. How are you going to turn into that and change and sustain it? So good for you for being aware of it. And adversity is tough. I mean, there are a couple of phone calls I need to make as soon as we're finished that are going to be uncomfortable for me, but I have to do it.
Good stuff. I like especially what you were talking about a moment ago when you were talking about who you connected to and what is the nature of those connections? What is the nature of those relationships? Because that is a factor that I noticed. I mean, you asked, what did I learn over 12 years? It didn't occur to me immediately, but that's one of the factors that I realized was probably among the top 3 that really drive not just financial success, any kind of success in life. I don't care what kind of success you're talking about. If you have connections to other people that are feeding you, that are nourishing you, and in that sense, you have the right connections. Those connections will help you achieve whatever your success is. It doesn't matter what it is.
So one of the things, and I'm glad you mentioned that, one of the things I did, and I did this on Alignable as just sort of a give back, totally impromptu. I realized most people actually don't keep their New Year's resolutions. So they say, we're going to do this. This is going to be a great transformative day, transformative year. And they not only don't know how to implement that, but they don't sustain it through change. And there's a program called the 12-week year. And it's probably one of the best ways to actually tackle goals and schedule it in and do it. And I did an impromptu goal setting session, not financial, general. Let's work on foundational things so that you can at a later date apply it elsewhere. And I did it as an impromptu thing, and I mentioned it just a couple of times on Alignable. I got 11 registrations out of nowhere. 8 people showed up, and they're willing to come back once a month. And I'm literally going to just start feeding these people structural tools some of my basic tools, and I'm going to put myself on the line by sharing my stuff, and we're going to hold each other accountable. I am willing to open that up to anybody. If you come in there and you are willing to respect boundaries and privacy, but be a positive part of this, anybody who wants to come in, you are welcome to join.
But what you're talking about is basically what Napoleon Hill called a mastermind.
Correct. It is a mastermind, but it's just for goal setting. And we're using a very simple, not easy, accountability method and structure where we're going to look in and we're going to say, okay, like with me, there are certain things I need to do that are difficult and unpleasant. I need to turn into those adversity points, get them done so that it has the maximum impact on my business or on my personal life or on my physical health. Okay, there are certain things women have to do annually that are just not fun. Schedule them and get them done, okay? These are the things that we have to do, put them on the schedule, get them done, hold ourselves accountable. And I'm doing that. So anybody who wants to join my goal setting mastermind, I will give you guys the link and you are welcome to join. All right. It is free and it is an opportunity to actually use a system that works in an environment that is supportive. But the minute you're not supportive is the minute you're getting booted out.
Interesting that you're bringing this up because I do 3 shows a week, one with Jody Lynn on Wednesdays. I also do one with Anne-Marie Young on Mondays. And then Monday evenings, I do one with Joel Elston, who was one of my earliest interviews 12 years ago on the podcast. And he and I have maintained contact and done a lot of shows since then. And he was telling me recently, he's part of a mastermind in his area. He lives in Richmond, Virginia area. Mm-hmm. And he received a very interesting piece of input from a couple of the people in the group. The input was, Joel, you haven't done anything crazy lately. You need to do something crazy.
So what's the crazy thing?
And so
what have you done crazy, Jody? What have you done that's been crazy? Talk to me.
I have done a lot of crazy things. So like we're talking about like the last year, the last month, today.
Okay, I'm not going to ask you to come clean about anything that shouldn't be in the public domain. But that's okay.
But I have done lots of crazy things in my life. Probably the craziest thing that most people think is the craziest thing is racing horses.
Oh, how fun.
That for a really long time. And also I live in a warehouse, so that's pretty crazy.
Did you convert a warehouse like a barn dominium?
Essentially, yeah, we have living quarters in our shop. Yeah, we decided to, in 2019, we decided to sell our house. We bought a piece of land in 2018. We wanted to live out in the country. Mm-hmm. And we mapped everything out. And it was my husband's dream to have a shop. And I don't want to, there's certain things that I want in my house. It's not crazy fancy or anything, but there's certain things that I want that I won't give up. So we decided to move into here until we save enough money to build most of our house in cash and then build what we truly want. But it's crazy.
Awesome. That's
because
awesome.
What's that?
That's awesome.
Thank you. But it was the perfect thing that needed to happen because right after we moved out here, my husband lost his job for 18 months.
Oh, wow.
So we went from having like a $3,000 a month mortgage and bills and all of that stuff down to like we owe nothing on pretty much nothing except the land. We built the shop in cash and have like $1,000 a month in bills. So we were not ruined financially when that happened. I mean, it was tough, but it wasn't the end of our story. It never is the end.
That is awesome. And I applaud you. And it's great. I mean, I think it's fun to hear those stories, and it's fun to hear people listen to their instincts and go after it and do it their way. Mm-hmm. No one gets a vote in how you manage things unless they have a stake in how they get paid for.
But it's so interesting how, like for me, before I met my husband, probably like a couple years before, I was so entrenched in what everybody else thought I should have for my life and what that should look like. The big business, fancy cars, fancy house, like make $1 million a year. And the thing is that, and Walt and I were just talking about this before we hopped onto the show, is that something that is really important is that honesty of what your true heart's desires are. I don't really care what kind of car I drive. I have a Ford Fusion. I love my car. It's not crazy fancy or anything. I've got some cool wheels for it, but it's like my baby. And I love that car. I can go through really deep snow when my husband's, rear end drive truck can't. So I like that. That's awesome. I mean, I live in a shop, which is completely different, but it works for me and my husband because he's always tinkering on things. And I just want to spend time with him and he just wants to spend time with me. So he can tinker and I can still like read a book, watch TV, do something, and we're still in the same vicinity. But a lot of people don't understand. And it took me a long time to let that go. And exactly what you said, embrace that this is my life and this is how I want to live it. And only the people that have a financial stake in it are going to tell me what to do.
The truth of the matter is that the financially successful are not the ones who care about what the crowd or the herd has to say.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. I mean, it's like, think about it this way. It's if you truly want to be financially successful and free, you want to be free, financially free, such that work becomes optional. You can't be worried about the clothing, the jewelry, the cars, any of that other bullshit. You just
Boy, is that true. Oh,
you just can't. You just can't. And the funny thing is, I know, I have people who have a tremendous amount of money. Okay. But the ones who are truly financially free are the ones who do not have to work to sustain the lifestyle they want to live. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is, most of them are the ones who watch every single penny. They may have a lot of pennies, but they know exactly where they're going. Mm-hmm. So, no, good for you. You learned it earlier than most. That's awesome.
Oh, I had a lot of hard financial moments and didn't.
We all do.
Wasn't smart at a lot of points in time. But I mean, it was the pain, like we just talked about, the pain that drove me to learn. And I'm in Canada, but when I was going through these things, I couldn't find somebody that was going to teach me or that was going to hold my hand or have compassion for the shit that I had been through. So I just made the decision right then and there. I had an opportunity to jump into the financial industry. So I thought, well, if you can't beat them, you might as well join them. I'll learn. And they can never take advantage of me again. And that's what I teach my financial clients. But I realized on the coaching side of things, I have a coaching practice too, that our relationship with money needs work, because even though it's a piece of paper, we let it hold so much over us with our belief system and how we look at it and how we allow it or the amount we have to tell us if we're good enough or not good enough. Or
it drives me crazy because I talk to people about this all the time, and I'm like, look, your washer and your dryer are a set of tools. You use them to wash your clothes, to have clean clothes. Yeah. Okay. Are you afraid of your washer or your dryer? If you are, then we need to talk about this. Okay. I mean, it's one of those things. Does a chef really fear his or her knives?
No.
Maybe they should, because they can get nicked pretty badly. I've heard chefs say that as soon as you have a new knife, you are going to get nicked. I'm like, great. Okay, let's not send that out there in the world. But the point is, it's like whatever your tools are, you've learned how to master them. Financial freedom is about what happens after you learn how to earn money. It's all those other things, and it can be mastered. It can be mastered by anybody who puts their intent into it. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then I see people say, oh, well, this person is super educated. Okay. So what? I heard a story from a woman who does nursing home placements. So she helps people figure out where they're going to go, or, assisted living placements. And she had a situation where somebody had made a tremendous amount of money, a prestige person, and they didn't have enough money to pay their own bills and get into it. And so they had medical issues. So they had to get qualified, and they had to find a facility that would take them just on federal money. Okay. Medicaid. And that's not a position you want to be in. And they got in there, and the man's pride cost him his placement. And on the same day that he was going in, he got booted out, and his family had to take him back home to their houses. They were paying his first 3 months to get him in, he and his wife in. Mm-hmm. Okay, you don't want to be in that position. It's so much easier to, instead of flaunting the cars, the vacations, the jewelry, the designer clothes, the bags, all of it. One last story I'll tell you, because I know I'm monopolizing and taking stories. I joined this one charitable organization, and a lot of people use this organization for women as a way to network within their community. Okay, fine. Everybody has their incentive. And if they're doing charitable work, who cares? But I will never forget sitting in that room one day, and I walked in with a headache, which is usually a bad place to start. But I walked in there and I looked and I saw all these fake Louis Vuitton purses on the floor.
Oh my.
And my comment was, it looked like the Louis Vuitton monster had come in and vomited out all the fakes all over the floor.
Mm.
And I was like, what do you people think you're communicating? Because I can give you the number of people that I know of who started off with nothing and have made an enormous amount of money, okay, and has saved it, been tremendously responsible with investing, and they don't own a single Louis Vuitton purse. Or if they do, they own one of the super expensive ones, not one of the cheap bags that gets replicated.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think you're kidding?
Mm-hmm.
No one cares. And if that's what you think wealth is, tell me how that bag is going to make you money. And they're like, oh, it makes me look like I belong. No, it makes you look like you're trying to buy your way in. Nobody wants that.
Mm-hmm.
How does that make you money? If you're in an industry where you need that, that's one thing. Tell me about that industry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And people look at me and they're like, you don't get it. No, I get it, but you're getting in your own way. I had a woman call me right before the start of the pandemic shutdown. And she had $110,000 worth of credit card debt. She didn't have any assets to pay it off. And she had a salary that was extraordinarily high. Plus she got bonus. So I asked her, okay, what's the deal with this? Did something unusual happen? Tell me what went on. And she and I wound up talking, and she said this was her pattern, that every year she would rack up consumer debt on experiences for her and her husband and children. Her husband also worked and earned money, not a single retirement account to his name. And I said, okay, so what's going on here? She said, well, we used the bonus that I got from changing positions to buy a new, bigger house. Wait a second. Okay. What about your emergency fund? Well, I used that as cash to get into the next house. How old are your kids? One kid was in college. One kid was going to college. The grandparents were going to pay for their children's schooling. So the education was paid for. And I looked and I said, so you have two children who within a year, both of them are going to be out of the house. Why did you buy the new house? Oh, we wanted the new house. Okay, but you used up your bonus money to pay off the credit card debt. You don't have any retirement assets other than this one retirement account you want to cash out. And she got very quiet. I said, so let me ask you a question. And she said, what? And I said, at your level, in your industry, do you anticipate you'll have complete control over when you stop working? She screamed and hung up.
Really? Wow. Interesting.
Called me back a couple of days later and apologized and said, I understand what you're trying to say. I said, I'm trying to advocate for you, not just today, but next year and the following years. She said, well, how am I supposed to pay off this debt? And she said to me, if I cash out the retirement account that I have, she had a cash balance pension. And I said, you live in a state where there's a state income tax and you're at the highest federal tax bracket. So that's 37% plus your state income tax, plus the fact that you're not 59 and a half. So you're going to have a 10% penalty. The answer is no, you are not going to be able to pay off the full $110,000 that you owe.
Mm-hmm.
She screamed again. I got a full written apology from her another time. Now, here's the thing. I never heard from her again. I'm okay with that. I wish her well. But she's the problem. Why would you buy a bigger, more expensive house and wipe out your cash reserves and your bonus and then continue with your spending habits? That should be a hard pain point. And one of the things the book that I mentioned talks about is that a hard rock bottom can be a good thing because it forces change. If you continue with this and you're determined to build a sewer underneath your rock bottom, okay, it's just going to be harder to get you out of it.
It's not really rock bottom at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sometimes people want to make another rock bottom. They want to build down.
Yeah.
The first rock
How deep
bottom.
can you go?
I'm sorry?
How deep can you go?
Mhm.
Yeah. So my program is designed to give people that emotional support, that space, so that they can do what they need to do, but also learn out the areas that may not be serving them and be able to make those mental shifts and then those behavioral shifts. It also gives them the education so that when they sit down with somebody like Jody or somebody like me, wherever you are, that you can sit down and have a conversation and realize, A, expect better and get better from the industry, and B, figure out pretty quickly who you want on your team and who you don't.
Good questions to ask. Yeah.
Well, people have to earn the right to be on your team.
Well, I think it's also a fundamental question that's kind of at the heart of what you were talking about, which is, what is the common denominator of all your problems?
You.
It's the only one.
Right. But I mean, I will say this, I think my industry has failed to help the average person. And I think that the only way the industry gets better is when we empower the individual to demand better.
Mm-hmm. That includes demanding more of yourself too.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where it starts.
Yeah.
If you don't respect you, why should anybody else respect you?
Mm-hmm.
So respect, but again, it all goes back to that belief. You have the right to have your boundaries, and you have the right to demand and find a way to get your needs met legally and ethically. Absolutely. But yeah, it starts there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Jody Lynn, what's your big takeaway here? I always ask you that every show, but this one's going to be really interesting because, like I said at the beginning, this is your wheelhouse. This is like your bread and butter.
Mm-hmm. I think it's just it's a couple of reminders for me and for the world. I love, Monica, how you said, expect better, demand better. I used to teach in the high school, and my high school that I went to, I would go back and teach finance. And that's something that I would say to them is that if you don't know, ask, and don't be afraid to ask the question. Demand some answers because that's their job. Don't, take away.
You understand, okay?
Exactly. And I think that's so amazing. If people just had the understanding, we'd have a completely different world. And I think it really begins with understanding you, because you are the problem. And when I say you, I'm pointing the fingers right back at me because I'm the problem in my life. And
me too.
You're the problem in your life. And really the thing that I want to, end on in all of the summary of the entire show is that it doesn't matter where you are. Today is the first day of the biggest change of your life, and you can create anything you want to. You just have to have that mindset, have the will to do it, and find the right people for your team. So thanks for that reminder, Monica.
Thank you for having me on, and thank you for giving me the chance to meet the two of you and to interact with your community. I respect you guys, and I respect what you're doing. And I just want people to know that they can build out what they want. They just have to determine how they're going to get there and start with them.
By the way, we didn't actually tell people where to go to find out more about your program. We should actually tell them how to find it. Right?
Yes.
Well, the best way to find me, quite frankly, I'm Director of Financial Planning at Harmony Asset Management. Our website's www.harmonyam.com. My email is mkaufman, spelled like my last name on the screen, MKAUFMAN at harmonyam.com. Email me anytime you want, and you can reach the Harmony Wealth Academy at theharmonywealthacademy.com.
Beautiful. Good stuff.
Thank you.
One thing that I want to finish on, I try to make it a point to do. I've been doing it for the last few years now, and each time I do it, I feel better. It's like every time it seems to be a better and better and better thing. Because it's one of those things in life that we have ignored, and it's in front of everybody's face. We all know about it, but we all kind of skip past it. And that is, we now live in the 21st century where it's all about the technology, and it's about how we interact with each other through the technology and all the different ways that we're getting our messages out. And people are discovering their crash and burn and what they learned from it, and they're sharing it with others. They come out to a program like this one, they share their stories. And you're doing that too. You're going into this program, you're doing other programs. I'm sure you do other ways of reaching out and sharing knowledge and information and insights with people. And this is where the gap is that I noticed. We are helping people, you are helping people in ways that you don't even know about, because we're in the consumer, we're in the information consumer mindset now, where the technology is making it possible for us to share all this information. So you've been helping people you don't even know about in ways that you don't even know about, and you don't get credit for that. And I said, well, wait a minute, why don't we get some credit for that? So Monica, on behalf of those people you've never met, never seen, never will meet, never will see, who you've been helping in ways you don't even know about, on their behalf, thank you. Thank you for what you're doing, because you're making a difference in this world.
Thank you. And thank you for giving me the chance to reach your audience and your people. And you know what? If this makes a difference in one person's life, then it was worth all the time and all the effort. And so, you know, if you can, the other thing that I want people to do is just spread it. I want them to spread your podcast, but I want them to spread the message that they can do it. And the more we actually start empowering others, the better this gets.
That's a great way to sum it all up. So thank you, Monica, for joining us. We loved it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jody Lynn, for all the good convo, and for we actually got to talk about pod. We didn't have to do a special show on that one.
It's amazing.
That was good. Yeah.
Everything together.
Everything came together. So thank you very much. Thank you, podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks. Take care.